So we finished our last presentation at 1611 AD, the year that the authorized King James Version of the Bible was published. A version of the Bible that had the entire Apocrypha in it. 1st and 2nd Esdras, Bel and the Dragon, the Book of Tobit, the Book of Sirach, the Wisdom of Solomon, 1st and 2nd Maccabees. There's a few on mission, 1st and 2nd Esdras. These books were all removed since the authorized version of 1611 had the Apocrypha. Since then, I believe in the 1880s, the Apocrypha was removed from the canon. Only the older Catholic Bibles now carry it. But now we're moving into 412 years ago, 1612 AD. This is the year 5506 Anno Mundi. It is 494 years before Armageddon, the year 6000, on the Anno Domini timeline. It's not the 6000th year of the world, guys. Many of you know that. Now, interestingly, this is the year 1656. 414 times 4, 138 times 12. This is 1656 of the Roman Julian calendar. So we find it interesting that the Japanese government, an Eastern government, saw the rising population of Christians in Japan as a threat to their traditional culture. So 1656 is always associated with bad things. It's always associated with bad things. Remember, the year 1656 was the Great Flood, the day the sky fell, the collapse of the vapor canopy. 2239 BC, the Great Flood of Noah, was the 1656 year. And now, in the Roman Julian calendar, the 1656 year was the entire population of Christians in Japan were put to death. You can imagine it was a pretty harrowing scene. It wasn't a small amount of people. Historians estimate that it was over 15,000 people that were put to death simply because they weren't Japanese. They weren't believing in the Japanese religion. So, that's crazy. So the following year, 1613. In 1613, 5507, the troubled times in Russia ends with the beginning of the Romanov dynasty. This is interesting. The Romanov dynasty. This means that there was a 1656 year period of the Roman Julian calendar, and then when that period was over, the first year after that, the Romanov dynasty begins in Russia, which is the most popular. The Russian people love the Romanovs. This dynasty was much loved by the people of Russia, being a devout Christian nation, and the dynasty would endure for 304 years until taken down in a Jewish conspiracy when the Bolsheviks in 1917, who had been messing with the Romanovs for 100 years, the Bolsheviks finally took over, assassinated it. They butchered the whole Romanov family. We don't know what they did with Anastasia. The Jewish Bolsheviks may have sacrificed her. They may have eaten her. They may have cut her up and turned her into a porridge and then fed her to the surviving Romanovs before they killed them. I'm telling you guys, this is what they do. It's nothing pretty about it. It's all speculative. I'm only speaking from the perspective of what the historical record shows that these people are capable of and what they've done in the past. So we can expect that the Romanovs did not die fast, and they did not die with dignity. They were probably done very, very wickedly. So this is what the Jewish Bolsheviks did to the Christian Romanovs of Russia. The ancient book of Jasher, called the Tome of the Upright. That's what Jasher means. Oh, it means Tome of the Upright. It survived millennia of invasions, book burnings, and transference hand to hand, all through Alexandria in Egypt and later in Rome, on through the Christian and Islamic library destructions to finally be printed in Venice, Italy. The calendrics are interesting. This is after 1656 years of the Roman Julian calendar are over. And now we have this amazing chronology of the world. It's like during this whole period of time, this book just survived. Remember, Albinus Alcuin in 800 under Charlemagne, he had a copy too. but it survived. And now, after the 1656 year periods, this Phoenix timeline is over with. Now, all of a sudden, the book can be published and widely distributed. The Book of the Upright, called the Book of Jasher, which I have endorsed as being the most fantastically accurate chronology I have ever found. So, it perfectly mirrors the Phoenix chronology without even mentioning the Phoenix or having any understanding of the Phoenix at all. So, unfortunately, though, for the Book of Jasher, it has been confused with its forgeries, and modern academia shuns the text after two particular controversies involving the Jasher texts that were forged, and they were submitted for publication and academic review, and it was shown to be forged. But they weren't the real Book of Jasher. This was specifically done. It was specifically done to discredit the text. One of them was in Bristol, England. We'll get to that. We haven't got to that yet, but we'll get to that. One of them, a fake version, was submitted to Bristol, England, and scholars published it and published it as a forgery, knowing it was a forgery. It wasn't the real Albinus Alcun translation of the Book of Jasher from 800. It wasn't the one. It wasn't the actual Jasher manuscript found in Gonza of Persia. For those who want an accurate translation of the Book of Jasher that wasn't a forgery, contact the Book Tree. They keep copies of this. It's a cheap paperback. I recommend it to everybody. 1-800 Book Tree. It's a 1-800. No, it's actually 1-800-700-FREE. TREE. I think it's 8733 or something like that. I can't remember. So 1-800-700-FREE. So the next year after that is 1614. In 1614, we have historian William Bramley wrote that it was in this year that the German order of the Rosicrucians at Hesse announced their presence in a dramatic publication, and that the policy of the order was to be publicly active and visible, operating among the people for 108 years, before going underground again for another 108 years. This is very intriguing, for the Masonic utopian empire, the United States of America, ends in cataclysm in 2046, exactly 432 years from this date, which is 108 times 4. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up, guys. Can't make this stuff up. They knew. They knew. 1614 plus 108 years is 1722. We'll find out what happened then. 108 years after that is 1830. 108 years after that is 1938. We all know what happened then. The planning for World War II, and then it unleashed. 1938. 108 years after that is 2046. John Rolfe of Jamestown in North America married the Native American girl Pocahontas, the daughter of Chief Powhatan. She had been earlier kidnapped by the English or the Dutch. But this is all in the year, this Pocahontas story is all in the year 1614. America is very, very embryonic. As soon as settlers land in America, the Rosicrucians begin 108 years of proselytizing and revealing their presence. And it's very crazy. It's crazy, guys. It's just crazy how these things have been in the historical record and no one's put this all this together. They have been knowing about 2040 and 2046 forever. They just kept it from the laity. They kept it from the average, layman. That's what they did. So in 1616, 490 years before Armageddon, 70 times 7 years. This is the 2200th, 2200 years from the fall of Judah. The Japanese government passed the edict allowing for the persecution of Christians in Japan. The more the Japanese tried to purge the Christian element out of their culture, the more Christians seemed to multiply. Yeah. Rome found out the same thing. So Galileo Galilei stood before the court of the Inquisition because of his belief and teachings on the Copernican theory. of a heliocentric system. Unlike others accused of heresy by the church, Galileo was a highly venerated scientist of the day, and any overt move against him would have set the people against the church. That was 1616. In 1618, which is the 2160th, 2160, which is a biblical, it's a number that's found in eschatology in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, in the book of Revelation, 2160. This is the 2160th year of the Buddhist calendar. It's also the 3024th year of Israel, which is 1008 times 3, 108 again. This began the 30 Years' War between German Catholics and Protestants, ending in 1648. Called the Great War by the Germans, millions died as more and more European nations were drawn into the conflict against the German Catholic Habsburgs. These were elitists. This year was 3,024 years, or 1,008 times 3, after Israel became a nation in 1407 BC. And 2160 years, which is precessional cycle, after, well, allegedly, after the start of the Buddhist calendar in 543 BC. Early Christianity having many ancient, amazing parallels with Buddhism as seen in my Chronicon. A lot of parallels, guys. Remember, it's said that Christianity began in Antioch, but the truth of the matter is Antioch was also the greatest seat of Buddhism outside of India in the 1st century when Christianity developed. So 3 comets appeared in this year, and they were studied by Johannes Kepler, also a source of fascination to Galileo. Some sources say there appeared 8 or 9 comets. It's really hard to tell. This was 1618. So in the following year of 1619, the first African slaves were sold to English colonists in Virginia, North America. Most people don't know, but the slave trade came from the Mediterranean, and they had been and shipping guilds had been providing slaves to Central and South America and to islands off the American coasts. And this is how the black populations arrived there basically in the Gulf of Mexico and off the coast of Veracruz state. So we have a lot of history that's been concealed about this. The movie Amistad gave up the game, and that's why the movie just basically fell into disrepute, and it just was never really put out there. But the Jews owned the shipping guilds and the slave galleys. This was all financed by them, and they're really, really good at shifting the blame to good old white folks, saying white folks did all this stuff. And it was the Jews that brought the slaves to the New World. They paid for them, then they financed the ships, and they paid for the voyages across the Atlantic, and they reaped the benefit by the sale of human cargo. So 1620. In the year 1620, the Pilgrims, or the Puritans, they sailed from Holland in the Dutch Republic on the Mayflower, where King James had driven them out because of their intolerance. They're Puritans. So, let's see. Yeah, they were not a friend to King James at all, and it was mutual. So they sailed to North America, hoping to found a land where God was feared rather than a king. On their way, they stopped at Plymouth Hoe in England. Oswald Spengler wrote in his The Decline of the West, the belief that the English are the descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, a nation of saints predestined to govern the world, dominated also the immigration to America, which began with the Pilgrim Fathers in the year 1620. Now, interestingly, 1620 is 432 years, or 108 times 4, before the beginning of the Anunnaki kingdom. This is the return of the 7 kings in 2052. That 432 number is amazing, and you guys have read Hamlet. Some of y'all have read Hamlet's Mill. This is the epic number in ancient calendrical systems. The Pilgrims landed and interacted with the local Native Americans. They would be saved from starvation by generous Indians, which is the origin of Thanksgiving Day. Sir Francis Bacon published his Novum Organum, or New Method, in which he explains the techniques for inductive reasoning. An old German newspaper of June 25th noted that for 8 days straight the water in the city moat around the German town was red like blood. The English Pilgrim colony in North America in 1620 was established exactly 792 years after the first king of England was enthroned in 828 AD. 828 AD, the first English king is enthroned in 828, which is 414 plus 414, two cursed earth periods. Both of them are divisible by 138. And now, 792 years later, which is the periodicity of the Nemesis X object, 792 is the number for the Anunnaki in all these old calendrical systems. Anything Anunnaki descended or related is found in the number 792. So this is the 792nd year since the founding of the throne of England in 828. That's really interesting, which happens to be, it happens to be 1620 when the Pilgrims arrived to Plymouth Rock, the official beginning of North America, of basically the United States histories. Further, this was precisely 25 centuries or 50 jubilees after the founding of the Israelite capital city of Samaria in 881 BC. Calendrics are too perfect, guys. Everything lines up perfectly because these are the same. These are the descendants of the more ancient people. The calendars are identifying the movement through reality tunnels of different peoples in different time periods, but they're the same bloodline. It's just different historical epics. The family names of those aboard the Mayflower, as preserved by Christopher Jones, Master, are Alden, Brown, Carter, Clark, Cook, Fuller, Martin, Priest, Rogers, Thompson, Turner, Warren, White, and Williams. These are the founding names of basically the United States, the 13 colonies of England. These names are all very, very popular today. This was over 400 years ago. Alden, Brown, Carter, Clark, Hook, Fuller, Martin, Priest, Rogers, Thompson, Turner, Warren, White, and Williams. These are the names of the founding families that arrived on the 3 ships that arrived on the Mayflower. That's amazing, guys. I know people with all those names pretty much. 1621, Father Joseph de Araya, in the Catholic Commission for the Destruction and Explanation of Idolatry, listed over 5,000 relics and artifacts of the American civilizations ruined by the Spanish, deliberately destroyed by agents of the church. Can you imagine all the information we could have had in Archaics if I would have just had access to visuals of those 5,000 books, codices, and relics that were destroyed by the Spanish? It's amazing. It's amazing what we lost. 1622. Chief Opunakano I can't pronounce that, guy. Oh my God. Opeshanakano was the brother of the Indian leader Powhatan of the Chesapeake tribes, and he devised a plan to destroy the English settlers. Luring them into a false peace, he then launched simultaneous attacks on the settlements surrounding Jamestown that killed over 300 settlers. Wow. The English colonists retaliated by destroying Indian cornfields, which kept them in check for 22 years until the year 1644. Wow. So, according to the historical record, the leftist liberals may be wrong. It looks like the Indians gave the first assault. Now I understand their territory was being I mean the Europeans invaded their North American territory. I get that. Now in the calendrics it's interesting because this is exactly 1,000 years after Hijra, or the 1,000th year of the establishment of the Muslim calendar, 1622, when this event happened. I would be interesting to know what happened in the Middle East at that date. 1624. In the year 1624, which is 2208 from the fall of Judah. It's 2,208 years, which is divisible by 138. It's a Phoenix number. From the fall of Judah, when King Nebuchadnezzar II, uh, oh no, I'm wrong. Yeah, it is the fall of Judah, 537 BC. King Nebuchadnezzar defeated Jerusalem and took the people into captivity when the Old Testament was written. So in this year of 1624, Japan reenacts the edict allowing for the persecution of Christians in Japan and its territories. This serves only to force the Christian movement underground, adding to its appeal and strengthening its bonds. Through the covenants of Christianity, the Japanese believers are adopted into the family of Israel. Remember, this is the tribe of adoption now. This year is 4736 years after the start of the Mayan calendar, and this year was 2368 years after the 10 tribes of Israel are deported into the east by the Assyrians in 745 BC, initiating their migrations. So I know 2368 is what is that? 1164, 1170. I can't remember, but oh, this was exactly 70 jubilees, or 3,500 years, since the establishment of the Abrahamic covenant in 1877 BC, offered to Israel and then all who maintain faith in the Creator. So here we have Japanese people accepting Christianity, which was an extension of the older Abrahamic religions. It's right here, it's in the calendrics. In this year, Montesinos copied from manuscripts of Blas Valera, now lost, a monk of Spanish Quiche blood. Now, Montesinos gives us our 2070 Phoenix dating for the early Inca kings. This is really interesting to find a Phoenix reference in the traditions of the Inca. That was given to us by I think it's Mountain Sinos. Montesinos. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But 2 years later, in 1626, which is the year 4440 Anno Pyramid, since the Great Pyramid of Egypt was finished. It is also the 1100th year Anno Domini, 1100 years, or 55 jubilees since the Anno Domini calendar was created. And why was it created? As I've shown in prior presentations on my YouTube channel, the Anno Domini calendar was specifically designed to hide the Phoenix cycle of 552 years. That's what it did. So the scholar, famous mystic and writer, Chancellor of England, Sir Francis Bacon, Lord Verulam, died. This year ends the Phoenix cycle system of 552-year epochs of human history before the year 2040, but it does continue them to 2178, which is the collapse date, the reboot date for the simulacrum. These were measured by appearances of the Phoenix phenomenon. So, let's see. This is 1626. It's still 138 years before Professor Hoffman discovers the Phoenix object with 500,000 Europeans. Also in this year of 1626, the Dutch purchase an island from the Manhattan Indians, still called Manhattan Island today. Their settlement named New Amsterdam, which would later be renamed as the City of New York. This year begins a 414-year timeline, literally a countdown, 414 years is a cursed Earth period of 138 plus 138 plus 138 years to the total destruction of the city of New York in the year 2040, when the Phoenix returns in the month of May, when the Atlantic Ocean will bury the city in the entire eastern United States. The whole seaboard will be affected by tsunami. So, also in this year of 1626, the Peruvian chronologist Ferdinand Montesinos finished his extensive Inca history. The research confirms the 1407 BC astronomical event of the sun standing still over Canaan. The American version claiming that the sun did not rise for 20 hours. Even the Phoenix period of 2070 years, or 414 times 5, is confirmed in the Peruvian records. This Andean chronology mentioned in my book, When the Sun Darkens. Also in this year of 1626, a drought suffered in China, which started 4 years earlier in 1622, now comes to an end. Sometime later, in 1626, Taoist priests, famous for their rain-making ability, were assembled by the people, and they practiced their magic on a hill as the people watched, desperate for rain. In George F. Kuhn's book, The Magic of Jewels and Charms, 1915, on pages 93 and 94, we read, "The sky darkened with the promise of rain. A rushing sound was heard as though the storm were near, and then to the dismay of all, a large shower of meteorites began to fall to the earth. Many people were killed or maimed, and the remaining crops were destroyed. Some thought it was the end of the world. When the storm was over, the angry people fell upon the unlucky Taoist priests and beat them soundly for bringing a deadly tempest instead of rain." Man, they just didn't have any luck, did they? They should have known the Phoenix dates, because 3,000 years before this incident happened, in China, if the sun ever darkened but it wasn't accurately predicted, the emperor beheaded the sky watchers. Sure did. Yeah, it's in my Chronicon as well. So in 1626, after 120 years since the construction began by Pope Julian II, St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome is finished in this year of 14. This is 414 years before its destruction in May 2040. St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome is a Phoenix cathedral. I have a video about it. Anybody can see it on YouTube. I have a whole video focused only on the cathedrals, and principally St. Peter's Cathedral, and I show in the calendrics it's not an accident that this cathedral was finished in this year, a Phoenix year. So in the month of May, the Dutch Director General of New Netherlands bought Manhattan Island from the Canarsie Indians with $24 worth of trinkets. Wow. Also, in this amazing year, a Phoenix year, Sir Francis Bacon finished his epic work, The New Atlantis. In a Phoenix year, the New Atlantis is North America, because that's where the old Atlantis was. 2 years later, in the year 1628, this is the year 5,000. 5,000 even. 5000 of the ancient Olmec American calendar, which started before the flood. This is the 5,000th year of the Olmec calendar. This is also 1152, which is divisible by 144. This is 1152 from the fall of Rome. From this year on, through 1643, massive drought leads to the deaths of millions in China. Why is China relative to the 5,000th the 5,000th year of the Olmec calendar? Because I show in my published books and in Chronicon and on my YouTube videos that scholars have identified the early Olmecs to be migrants that had fled from persecution in the Shang dynasty of China, and they reappeared in Veracruz state in Central America. The statuary, the symbols, the faces, the heads, the jade, everything from China was found in the Olmec sites. It's all identical. That's why it matters. So, deaths of millions of Chinese, famine and disease, incidents of cannibalism are also reported. This social unrest and fatality leads to the fall of the Ming dynasty and the rise of the Manchus in 1645. This is a cross-calendrical parallel because it was 1645 when dynastic changes happened all over the ancient world after all the children of the sun dynasties collapsed in the Ogygian deluge in 1687 BC. 25-year darkness, new dynasties arrived. Same thing we have here. This is a cross-calendrical parallel. The steam engine is invented in this year of 1626. Why is that relative? Why is it relative that in 1628, that the steam engine is built? Because in May 2040, most technologies will cease to operate. Total infrastructure collapse. The steam engine is invented, a machine motor that will alter the entire world, paving the way for industrial revolution, which in turn influenced worldwide economy. In this year of 1628, Fernando Montesinos' main source was a rare record of a Jesuit scholar, Blas Valera, on Old Peru, a work that disappeared in 1631 after Jesuit agent Padre Anello Olivia saw it. That's really intriguing that the Spanish destroyed thousands of books, codices, artifacts, relics, medallions, statuary, all kinds of engravings, reliefs, paintings. They destroyed all this history. Then somebody who had preserved a bunch of history has their manuscript read by a Jesuit agent and it disappeared. It's gone from the historical record. And what's interesting about this is that earlier citations of the same book that disappeared by way of the Jesuit cite references to Phoenix dates, 2070 years, and sun darkenings. It's no coincidence. Somebody wanted that information, vanished. 1629, Dutch navigator Francis Pellicer wrecked on the west coast of Australia. He is believed to be the first European to see a kangaroo. 1629. In the year 1630, Puritan minister John Cotton read 2 Samuel 7:10 as his farewell message to a boatload of Puritans departing for North America. 2 Samuel 7:10. Got me curious. 2 Samuel 7:10. I have it in Chronicon, but I didn't put what it was. So real quick, guys, bear with me. Pull this old keyboard out. 2 Samuel 7:10. That's got me curious. Damn thing keeps getting in my way. Got me curious. Why didn't I put this in Chronicon? If I mentioned it, it must have been important. Oh wow. Let's go to Bible Gateway. Let's go to Bible Hub. And let's look at this version here. All right. So let me go back. All right, 710. Hmm. So this guy Puritan minister John Cotton, he reads this verse as his farewell message to a boatload of Puritans departing for North America. So all these people in this boat are about to leave for North America, and the pastor reads this. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Nor shall the sons of wickedness oppress them any more, as previously. Wow. All right. So that was America to you, and you may be right. You may be right. So the year after this is 1631, and in 1631, Mount Vesuvius in Italy erupted, killing about 4,000 people. Pretty bad. It's like Pompeii and Herculaneum all over again. I don't know why they keep moving next to that Vesuvius. All it does is kill people. Remember Pompeii and Herculaneum? They weren't the first. I have a video right here on Archaics TV that shows the artwork and the sex toys and all this stuff from Vesuvius and Herculaneum. Pompeii. However, those cities were built on top of more ancient settlements that were also buried alive by Vesuvius in 1687 BC, called the Avellina eruption. So we get to 1633, it gets dark. Now it's getting dark, 1633. The Inquisition in Rome condemned Galileo. Pope Urban affirming, quote, the proposition that the earth moves is absurd, philosophically false, and theologically considered at least erroneous in faith. The earth does not move, it's stationary. The Pope has spoken. 1633, Galileo was in trouble. 1636, 1,110 years, 111 of the Anno Domini calendar. It is also 2,220 years of the fall of Judah. What does this mean? This is a massive isometric projection with the Anno Domini calendar being in the middle. 1,110 years into the past, Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar. 1,110 years into the future is our year right now, 1636. Harvard College is founded, the oldest university in the United States. It initially was founded to train the Christian clergy, but it did not have secular itinerary. The Pequot Indians of coastal New England traded with the Puritan settlers, but when a trader was murdered, the Puritans launched an attack on the Pequot fort on the Mystic River in the following year of 1637. So any calendrical relevance to this would be that the Harvard College would be an institution that was founded by the descendants of Israelites. And it is a very important institution. Harvard College is still important today. 1637. The Puritans of New England with Mohican and Narragansett Indian allies attacked the Mystic River fort of the Pequot Indians. The colonial fighters were from Connecticut and Massachusetts. They destroyed the wooden palisade and the fortress and killed about 400 Pequot Indians. Considered one of the first stunning victories of the English over Indians. Sounds like it was the English and other Indians, but I get it. 1638. The year 2222 since the fall of Judah. After a series of intrigues, Japanese officials concluded that Catholic Christianity was a cloak for the political ambitions of the Pope and Spanish monarchy. They're right. Japan formally closed off its borders to all Europeans. John Greaves traveled to Egypt in 1637, and in this year he thoroughly studied the outside and inside of the Great Pyramid Complex, seeking evidence of a universal measuring system incorporated within the dimensions of the monument, a project his colleague Sir Isaac Newton was earnestly awaiting the result of. Newton believed that the Great Pyramid's dimensions contained the encoded secrets of the universe. Greaves would publish his famous findings in Pyramidographia. Oh my God, Pyramidographia. I don't know. In this year, a gigantic. Oh, that's something else. Yeah, Greaves would publish his famous findings in. I don't want to. I can't believe I can't pronounce this word. It's got the word pyramid in it and graphia, but I don't think it's pyramidographia. Pyramidographia. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it alone, guys. I'm gonna leave it alone. That comes from H.G. Wells, A Short History of the World, page 276. Just coincidence. 138 plus 138. In the year 1639, astronomers all over Europe first witnessed through telescopes the transit of Venus. Yeah, William Corliss talks a lot about this too. It was a really important event. 1639 was the first time astronomers were able to watch the transit of Venus through telescopes. Tiny, tiny Venus going over the huge sphere of the sun. Tiny, tiny Venus. Okay. 1641. Irish chief Rory O'More led a rebellion against the English to take Dublin, Ireland. The hatred of the English seethed over abuses, and the Irish took revenge in killing about 30,000 English occupants of Dublin, Ireland. The War of Religion in Ireland results in the total death of about 40,000 Protestants, the Irish being Catholic. Jesuit priests in Brazil sent back to the Vatican strange figurines discovered in Brazil, where antiquarians there translated the inscriptions on the statues, learning that they were Punic, 800 to 140 BC. Somehow, Phoenician relics ended up in South America, and the Spanish covered it up. First time Mother Shipton's prophecies appeared in print was in the year 1641. 80 years after her death, but with no biographical data about her. This was 153 years after her 1488 AD death. So, this is intriguing. Wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. That should have been birth, after her birth. Yeah, she was born in 1488. So this is unusual, guys. The calendrics tell me a different story than the historical record does. And that story is that Mother Shipton there may have been a grain of truth to that there was a witch, there was a Mother Shipton, all that might be true, but she wasn't born in 1488. That year was put into the story because the storyteller wanted you to associate her message with the calendar. And what I mean is, it's no coincidence that Mother Shipton was born in 1488, although we have no proof of that. Yet the records later all claim she was. 1488 was a phoenix year. It was 138 years before 1626, another phoenix year, which is 138 years before 1764, when Phoenix was seen by astronomer Hoffman. So they wanted to attach a calendar to the story of Mother Shipton and her poem. What is her poem about? The focus of her poem is the return of the two sky dragons. And one of them was going to be a century after a world war. Well, that was 1940. A century later is 2040. Somebody already knew the sequence of events. And they backdated her birth to a year that would have been a phoenix year. So this is all very cleverly done, guys. It's all very cleverly done. 1642. 1642 in central northwestern China, the altered course of the Yellow River. Oh, I see. Excuse me. In central northwestern China, rebels altered the course of the Yellow River, and it killed about 300,000 people in present-day Hunan. What? Something as simple as some rebels getting together and going upriver and altering the course of the river to flood a lowland drowned 30,000 people. Amazing. Man. In this exact year of 1642, a plague in Egypt killed 2 million people. 1642. And in the following year of 1643, which is interesting because we have a cross-calendrical parallel. This is the year 1687 Roman Julian. What happened in 1687 of the old world's calendar? No, excuse me, 1687 BC, the Ogygian deluge, the great flood of the Mediterranean, and worldwide earthquakes and sun darkening. But in 1643, right here, we have prophetic chronologist Heidelberg wrote that the Roman Catholic Church would fall from power in the year 1866, a belief shared by Professor Cellarius of Basel. In 1551, Robert Fleming in 1701, Gressner in 1690, among others. They all believed that prophecy indicated that the Roman Catholic Church would fall from power in 1866. This prediction concerns the 1260 years of the rule of the beast over the 10 toes, the 10 kingdoms of Europe, which became a multitude of European nations descended from the 12 tribes of migrating Israelites. This was the belief 400 years ago, guys. The 1260 years was believed by these men to start in 606 of the Common Era, when the Pope was declared to be universal bishop, the master over all other Christian bishops. As seen in 1866, the Pope indeed lost much power. Now, Sir Isaac Newton is born in this year, largely remembered as being the first to record his ponderings over gravity and its force. Though Hipparchus, about 2,000 years earlier, explained the precession of the equinox and times, it is about 100 years. Wait a minute. Time and times. Oh, and times it at about 100 years. Newton recalculated this retrograde period and determined its exact longevity at 72 years per degree of movement. 11 degrees was 792 years, and 12 degrees was 864 years. That's very intriguing. Very intriguing. My position is that the precession phenomenon did not begin until 713 BC, when the year changed from 360 days to 365.24 days. That's when it changed. So So, though Newton has been popularized as a leading scientific mind, and for the first time he was, what is little known today is that Isaac Newton was an avid researcher into the deep truth of the scriptures and was convinced that there were latent messages encoded within the biblical narratives. He diligently studied the biblical prophecies and wrote over 1,000,000 words of commentaries on his own interpretations and thoughts. Newton was fascinated with the research of John Greaves, who studied the Great Pyramid in Egypt and measured it. 1643, in this year also, the same year, an Irish bishop discovered an ancient manuscript on German mythology, opening with a prophecy of Osiris. Remember, the cross-calendrical parallel is 1687. Roman Julian. So 1687 BC was the sun darkening, which began the Ogygian apocalypse. This ancient German prophecy in this year is the sun turns black, earth sinks into the sea, the hot stars down from the heavens are whirled. It's prophecy. We know that's the Phoenix, 2040 AD. All very interesting. So in the very next year, the next year is 1644. On May 27th. Oh, this is the 1380th year of the Egyptian Christian Coptic calendar. 138 times 10. On May 27th, the Manchus of China marched toward Peking to reinforce allies fighting against the Ming dynasty, which had ruled for 276 years, 138 times 2. In a brilliant move, the Manchus concealed their army within a great dust storm and engaged the Chinese army of the Ming by surprise, taking Peking to establish the Qing dynasty that would go on to rule for 268 years. In North America, there's that guy again, Opeshcheniko, launched another wave of the Indian attacks against the English settlers that resulted in another 300 deaths in 2 days. This time, the settlers captured Chief Opeshcheniko, whatever his name is, and they shot him and forced the Indians out of the region between York and the James River. It's getting bloody between the English settlers, the Dutch, and the local Native Americans. So a year after that is 1645. Astronomers noted a moon-like object near Venus. This was the first recorded sighting of this object, but there would be many more sightings over the next few years. Some astronomers have searched diligently for this unknown object, only to find that it is now gone. Later, the object is again reported by other astronomers in the 1800s. This is going to go down in the Royal Astronomical Records as an object they call Vulcan. Vulcan is a Latin phoenix. 1646. In the year 1646, the monumental research of John Greaves on the Great Pyramid was published in this year, Pyramidographia, or a description of the pyramids of Egypt in England. He was made the professor of astronomy at Oxford. On May 20th, strange sounds accompanied with rumblings were heard in the skies all over England, throughout Norfolk, Suffolk, and Cambridgeshire. A pillar of clouds appeared that seemed to ascend from the earth, pyramidal in form. Others describe it as a steeple ascending from the earth. At the same time, the witnesses claim that a cloudy spike descended from the sky to encounter it. It's like an hourglass, a pyramid going up and smoke and dust, and a upside down pyramid coming down. They touch in the middle. What was this weird shit they saw? How bizarre. 1646. It is precisely 460 years before Armageddon. Wait a minute. I know that number 460. 460 times months. It's 5,000. Look at this, guys. It's 5,460 years before Armageddon. It's 5,552. 10 Phoenix cycles. Right there. 10 Phoenix cycles. This is, right here, 138 times 40. Wow. They they were seeing something in the construct that just wasn't really happening then. It's not going to happen for another, excuse me. It's not going to happen for another 460 years. So in 1648, in the year 1648, which is the 2400th year of Rome, 1648. The 30 Years' War ended in Germany between those Catholic Habsburgs and the Protestants of Europe with what is known as the Peace of Westphalia, ending the Holy Roman Empire of Germany. What? Rome is founded in 753 BC. Rome is founded 24 centuries later, which is 4 Anunnaki Ner periods of 600 years, 600 years, 600 years, 600 years. 2400th year is the fall of the Holy Roman Empire of Germany. Wow. Also, the Taj Mahal in Agra, India is finished in this year. John Aubrey discovered that the huge hill called Avebury in England was artificial. This mound is so immense that the entire village had been built inside it, its sheer size disguising its artificiality, the locals thinking it was a natural hill. In this year, a Jew of Smyrna named Sabbatai Levi was charismatic and gathered a following, proclaiming himself the Messiah. Thousands gave up their possessions to follow him until Turkish officials threatened his life. Promptly, Zabbatai, what's his name? Sabbatai Zephhi converted to Islam to the disbelief of his followers. He was a grifter. He was a grifter and got caught. Robert Seifer does a good job on, he's got 2 videos and a book about this guy. 1649. In the year 1649, King Charles I is executed for treason at the behest of Oliver Cromwell, who was backed by Parliament. Cromwell then permitted the Jews to come back to England, reversing the expulsion edict, issued and enforced since 1290 by King Edward I. Can you believe that? Charles I is executed. Charles I is executed by a Jew sympathizer, and the Jews are allowed back in after Edward I had decreed that in the expulsion edict that he passed, they were not allowed in the country. That's really interesting. So we got 1290. Let's look at this. 1290 minus 1649. Wow. We're talking about a 360, 60 times 6. So the Jews would be returning the following year. It'd take a while for them to move. So this is 359 years after the expulsion edict, which means the very next year was the 360th year, and Jews begin flooding England again. Wow, crazy. So in the year 1650, Archbishop James Ussher calculated that the Great Flood occurred in 2348 BC. This is only 109 years off from the true 2239 BC, demonstrated in many ways in my Chronicon. Now, the Great Flood ended a specific 432,000 day countdown known to the ancients before the flood. And this year of 1650 was exactly 3,888 years after the flood, or 432 times 9 since 2239 BC. So the calendrics are interesting that he would publish this in the year that was calendrically significant to those numbers. But we all know that he misdated the flood. He would have never found these numbers here because he didn't know the true date of the flood. He was still going by the fictitious Jewish chronology. I have a date. If anybody, I have a video that explains that the Jewish calendar is not old. It's very recent. It's an import into many books pretended antiquity, and there's not a hint of the Jewish calendar anywhere in the Old Testament or the New Testament at all. I have a video that explains all this and explains how scholars in the 1800s already determined that the Jewish calendar was a lie. But this is what Archbishop James Ussher dated a lot of his older events by Jewish reckoning. So, also in this year, a series of quakes before a volcanic eruption of Thera released poisonous gases, killing livestock. This was 924 years after 726. Which was 924 years after 197 BC, both dates known for Theran explosions. This volcano, Thera, erupted in 726, erupted in 924, and erupted in 197 BC, and all of these are 924 years apart. I guess the volcano has a timer. Every night, hey guys, it's 923 years, get ready, next year we're going to blow. That's crazy. We live in a construct. So, 50, what time is it right now? What time do I have? Okay. So in 1651, Antonio de Castro del Castillo, Bishop of La Paz in South America, that's a lot, wrote concerning the enigmatic megalithic ruins of Pumapunka near Tiahuanaco. Quote, "It has not been concluded that these structures date from before the flood. As seen in Chronicon 1, now, these ruins were left from the worldwide cataclysm that occurred 552 years after the Great Flood in the year 1687 BC, when Phoenix transited, darkening the sun and afflicting the world with devastating earthquakes, introducing a 25-year darkness." So it's very interesting to me that less than like 360 something years ago, 370 years ago, this man would study Pumapunka and Tiahuanaco, and as bizarre as it all was, he would still conclude that these are not antediluvian architecture. Kudos for you, sir. Antonio de Castro del Castillo, Bishop of La Paz. You would think when they find these places that they would be quick to jump on, oh, those are pre-flood architecture, but he wasn't. And I'm proud of him for that, because he's right. In this year also, William Lilly of England predicted that the plague would return to London and that the city of London would be destroyed in a fire. Both of these would occur in 15 more years. 1666. So in 1652, moving right along, in 1652, John Greaves died, famous for his research on the pyramids of Egypt. This year ends the 12th Bacton of the Mayan long count calendar, begun in 3113 BC, being 1,728,000 days, or 144,000 times 12. This is 12 Bactons of 400 years each, in each year of 360 days. This begins the final Bacton of 144,000 days to the year 2046. When Nemesis X object pushes our world off its present path around the sun into a much tighter orbit that abbreviates the year to 240 days and the day to 16 hours, when North America is destroyed by a bolide impact. In this year, a comet is reported by Europeans in November, and a meteorite crashes between Siena and Rome in the month of May. Now, remember, guys, everything in the sky is simulated. So don't get triggered when you hear planets and worlds and orbits and the sun and all that. Every bit of that is designed to make us believe that we're in a solar system when we're actually in a containment field. In the year 1653, the tomb of Moravian King Childeric I, father of Clovis I, was accidentally discovered by a stonemason working on a church. Inside the tomb were found 300 golden bees. Wow. The Moravian dynasty, early Franks, they became the French people. The Moravians were Franks, though. They were the German dynasty, but the Franks were Germans. Most people don't know this. The French and the Germans have always been enemies, but they haven't. They were actually allies. They're cousin nations. Going back 13 centuries, they come from the same offshoot. So 12 years later, these 12 years later, these bees would be given to French King Louis XIV in 1665. The bee was a symbol of royalty. In 1653, Antiquities of the Jews by Flavius Josephus is published, a monumental work of world history. Now, the year is 1656, cross-calendrical parallel, 2239 BC, the 1656th year of the pre-flood antediluvian world. It is the day the vapor canopy collapsed, the sky fell, it is the Great Flood. Now, this is 1656 Anno Domini, which happens to be the year, the 2400th year from the post-exilic chronology. This is the year, this is the 1700th year of the of the Roman Julian calendar. 34 Jubilees. In this year of 1656, Manasseh ben Israel, leader of the Jews of Amsterdam, visited London and met with the Puritan English minister Oliver Cromwell, persuading him to allow the Jews to return. The Jews had been disallowed entrance into England since the expulsion edict of 1290 by King Edward I, 366 years earlier. Cromwell was an avid reader of the scriptures. This year, 1656, is 414 times 4, or 552 times 3, 3 Phoenix cycles. The Annus Mundi year of 1656 being 122239 BC when the Great Flood occurred. Edmund Halley is born in this year, famous for discovering that a returning comet was the same comet that had returned many previous times before, so it was named Halley's. He predicted its return, and 16 years after his death, it did return in 1758. In 1682, let's see, hold on. I got some little personal notes stuck in here. So, in this year, Archbishop James Ussher died. The Christian chronologist who dated the beginning of the world at 4004 BC and Armageddon at 1996 CE. Ussher's chronology became the accepted Orthodox chronology despite its errors until the 1850s, when several scholars would make discoveries that would show a more accurate chronology. His chronology is 110 years off, just as the ancient Jewish calendar today is 133 years off. So in this year, Archbishop James Ussher died 1656. In 1657, the dark satellite, once a former rock and metal moon of the Nemesis X object, passes through the inner system on its way. Oh, it's 395-year periodicity on its way to the year of Apollo 2052. This is what begins the Beast Empire, bringing the 7 kings of the Anuna, who will rule mankind during the Beast Kingdom. This is the dark satellite. 1658, 2 years after he died, James Ussher's chronology was published as The Annals of the World, deduced from the origin of time. It was an instant success, the talk of England and Europe. This year was exactly 5,000 plus 552 years Annus Mundi, or 1658, Common Era. 5,000 plus 552 is a Phoenix cycle. Now, Phoenix as seen in the When the Sun Darkens and Nostradamus and the Planets of Apocalypse, my 2 books, 552 years being this Phoenix cycle, it's not, remember, Phoenix is keeper of the calendar. That's what makes it relative to this date right here. That the fact that Archbishop James Ussher, his chronology was known throughout the world. It is cited in tens of thousands of books. It is all in the commentaries of millions of Bibles. It is very widely known. And yet he dies in this date, which is 5,552 Annus Mundi, or 5,000 plus a Phoenix cycle. Phoenix being the keeper of the calendar. This is the link here, the calendrics link to this very important man who provided this chronology. Phoenix is the object of chronology. Also in this year of 1658, Don Ferdinand de Alva Istilashil, I can't pronounce that. He published his Historia Chichime. I can't pronounce any of these things, guys. This is amazing. It is amazing that anybody could even try to pronounce these things. If you're not Quiche, if you're not Aymara, But anyway, this is a huge historical chronological work on the ancient Incan people. On a Phoenix, on this amazing Phoenix calendars. So in 1660 is 1584 of the Saka calendar. That's 792 years plus 792 years since the Saka calendar began in India. This is the year 1660. The Royal Society is formed in London by Freemasons. It would become official in 1662. The society would become the world's foremost knowledge filter in establishing what would be considered scientifically true and what would be considered heretical. Britain enacted the Navigation Act to regulate colonial commerce to fit the needs of England. There it is. Going down now, 1660. England's becoming a naval, excuse me, becoming a naval superpower. 1661. Europeans report the appearance of a strange comet in January. Jesuit Father Albert de Orville in 1661 wrote, I'm going to quote him, this is amazing. I want to tell you how many years ago this guy said this. 2024, 1660, 61. 363 years ago. Let's see. Uh 363 years ago, Jesuit father said, beings from other worlds have for centuries sailed the seas or space. They brought intellectual illumination to the first people populating Earth. These beings often descend near our monasteries, teaching us and revealing things lost for centuries during the cataclysms which have shaped the aspect of the world. I agree and disagree because I have put forth so much evidence that after cataclysms we have some type of benefactor force that puts us back on our feet, unleashes technology and knowledge in the form of new translations of older books, and just unleashes these things after these resets and cataclysms, a benefactor force. I disagree that they're extraterrestrials. I am on board with them being from the underworld or maybe even interdimensional, outside the construct. Very interesting that he should say this 363 years ago. But even the learned in the church back then were already accepting the heliocentric model, thinking that we were on a planet hurling around a star. In October, an earthquake in the region of Worcester and Hereford in England was monstrous. Flaming things were seen in the sky during the earthquake. Wow. That was in October. October of 1661. Monstrous flaming things were seen in the sky during an earthquake in October. So 1662. In this year, an earthquake afflicts China and kills 3 million people. That's terrible. That's a lot of people to die. 1664 is the 1400th year of the ancient Egyptian Coptic calendar. It is also, what is 360? I don't know what that is, but 14, yeah, it's the 14 centuries is 28 jubilees. It is also 1188, fall of Rome. 476 AD, the Germans under Odovacar in the 10 armies destroyed Rome, and they took Rome in 476, which was 1,188 years before this year of 1664. 1188 is 108 times something. 1188 is 108 times 11, I believe. Yeah, 1188. 108 times 11. The English take over New Amsterdam on Manhattan Island and rename it New York. So the English did that. Okay. Okay. This city would become the financial epicenter for global commerce, a, a great metropolis with steel and glass towers to heaven. The Black Death plague strikes London for the 5th time since 1593, when it first appeared. The following year would see the greatest loss of life. Astronomer Robert Hooke discovered the red spot on the surface of Jupiter, an unusual gigantic region about the size of Earth that appears to move around in a liquid state that never wanders too far from its latitude. Now, as if it's tethered to the area. This was the 4,000th year since the birth of Shem in 2337 BC, ancestral patriarch of the Semites. A comet is seen in November according to Europeans. At 1664, ancient Egyptian Coptic calendar is a Christian calendar. 1665, the Black Death plague in London, England, alone killed 68,596 people, but estimates of the total death toll in England was closer to 100,000 deaths between this year and 1666. This is the 72nd year since the arrival of the plague in 1593. In March, a blue silky substance fell from a clear blue sky in great quantities near Naumburg in Europe. I need to get me a drink. Real brief interlude. I had to take a break. I was tired. Got other things on my mind. And put about a good 2 hours in reading this old crappy ass book right here. Yeah, this book right here, oh my god, it's hard to do a review on a book that's just so childish. It really is. I'm going to show it on YouTube. It's embarrassing. Extraordinary claims, absolutely nothing to back them up. Yeah, it's embarrassing. Billy Carson, Matt LaCroix, sad. But that's what I'm doing in my downtime right now, reading that book. So we're at 1666, the Great Fire of London, which is interesting because we started our study before this whole history on the Tiny Hats Off series started after 1212. But let me see something real quick because it's in the year 1212, which was a Phoenix year on the 138-year timeline, London burned to the ground. But when we talk about the Great Fire of London, the only one you hear about in the historical record is 1666. Let's see, the 1666 minus 1212 is 454 years. Interesting. Interesting. So 454 years before. Let's see, I'm going to see 1.618. I'd like to know, did London get bombed? Did London get bombed in 46 was over. It was over. So anyway, it's 454 years separates that. I don't know if I want to believe that. God, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's very interesting. So this is 1666 is 440 years before the 6,000th year. The Great Fire of London devastates the city, many believing that it also rid them of the plague. And we know smoke does do that. So this fire was first predicted by Nostradamus and then later by William Lilly. The astrologer Lilly was then summoned. He was still alive. So he was summoned to stand before Parliament to prove himself, to show that it was not he that started the fire because he predicted it. Now, successfully defending himself, he was freed. The Dutch fleet engaged the English at the mouth of the Thames River and saw 6,000 Englishmen dead, with only 800 Dutch fatalities. So it kind of makes you wonder if 1666, if the English and the Dutch were at war, then why hasn't anybody concluded the obvious fact that the Dutch burned the city? Come on. You had agents in the city. You started the fires. It was a great fire. Multiple fires in different locations, and you'd have burned the whole city. So I don't know why nobody's come forth and and claim that. So the English lost 23 vessels. This was the 600th year since the Norman invasion of England in 1066. So we have exactly one whole Anunnaki nerve period of 600 years between the Norman naval invasion and the Dutch invasion. That's crazy. So the Lutheran prelate Benedict Karbzov dies, a fanatic who had condemned to death over 20,000 women. An astronomical observatory is established in Paris, France, and King Louis XIV established the Paris Meridian, a longitudinal line that ran straight through Paris on a Franco-centric map. John Milton completes his epic Paradise Lost. You've all heard of that. It was published in the following year, 1667. So, oh, I need to reread that. It's probably been 15 years since I've read Paradise Lost. It concerns the fall of man. It's all poetic. So Sir Isaac Newton invents the mirror telescope. Concerning telescopes, in this year, Domenico Cassini reported that he had discovered ice caps at the polar extremities on the planet Mars. This is an astronomer claiming this. It is to be noted that Cassini at this time did not mention seeing any moons orbiting Mars, which would not be discovered until 1877. That's crazy. What is that, 211 years later? 1877 is when the first mention of the moons of Mars. Many believe these two moons of Mars recently appeared in orbit. John Aubrey studied Stonehenge. In 1666, John Aubrey studied Stonehenge. That's where we got the term Aubrey holes. He discovered the famous holes in there for lunar markings that was around the complex. So the 650-foot plaza with encircling rows of columns is finished before St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome after 40 years of construction. Wow, you guys seen that plaza? The plaza's huge. It's over two football fields wide. It's huge. Yeah, St. Peter's Cathedral. In the following year of 1667, a Dutch fleet sailed up the Thames River in England and destroyed much shipping. Man, the English are getting holed out. The Anglo-Dutch hostilities were concerning the English takeover of New Amsterdam, renamed New York. In August, a hurricane destroyed the first English colony, Jamestown. That's crazy. In November, at Shimka, China, an earthquake killed about 80,000 people. Also, an earthquake between the Black and Caspian Sea in Caucasia killed about 60,000 people. In the following year, in 1668, it's the 5,040th year. It's a number divisible by 108. So, of the Olmec calendar. The famous English pirate Henry Morgan took the leading Spanish port on the American Atlantic coast, Portobello. Hevelius, in his Cometographia, wrote about the great comet that was seen in the year of the Exodus, 1447 BC. Robert Hooke proposes that fossils can be used as a source of information about Earth's early history. A huge 116-carat diamond of bluish color was stolen from India and brought to King Louis XIV. Wow. In 1673, a court jeweler would cut it down to 67 carats, and the French would call it the Blue Crown Diamond. This is the origin of the Hope Diamond. 1669. On March 17th, on the town of Châtillon-sur-Seine, a reddish liquid rained that was thick and putrid from the sky. Mount Etna in Sicily erupted, attended with tremors and quakes from March 8th to March 11th, leaving 100,000 people dead. You guys got to get away from those volcanoes. Mount Etna in Sicily erupted after an earthquake and lava flowed quickly over a dozen towns and villages, killing about 20,000 people. Got a helicopter overhead. 1670. In the year 1670. A monk suffering an ailment at a hermitage at Mount Ararat rewarded the physician who cured him. A Dutchman named Jans Jazoen Struys, with a small carved cross, carved out of a dark and very heavy wood, seemingly petrified. The monk claimed that the wood was the ancient timber taken from the wreckage of an old ship high upon the glacial mountain said to be Noah's Ark. The Dutchman took the relic to St. Peter's Church in Rome. There's a lot, from this point forward, we have a lot of explorations on Mount Ararat that are bringing artifacts down of petrified nature that are all claiming to come from this structure trapped in a glacier. They're saying it's Noah's Ark. There's a lot of books about this topic. This is the first, one of the first citations here. It's from the year 1670, and it's from a book called In Search of Noah's Ark, page 78. It's just the first of many. 1671, we have another cross-calendrical parallel. This is 1407 of the Egyptian Christian Coptic calendar. It's the year 1671 of our calendar. Jean Picard, Monsieur de la Terre, provides an estimate of the Earth's size accurate to within 90 feet. The British philosopher Henry Moore released his book, Enchiridion Metaphysicum, wherein he argued for the existence of a fourth dimension beyond our senses that serves as a home to spirits and demons. These are pretty sophisticated concepts for over 400 years ago. Italian astronomer Giovanni Domenico Cassini discovered Saturn's third largest moon, Iapetus. This 900-mile wide moon is in a near perfect circular orbit like our moon. And like our moon, only one side faces its planetary host. Square and hexagonal craters have been found upon it. Hexagonal and square craters. The tallest mountain range in the solar system is a ragged ridge completely encircling Iapetus at its equator. Iapetus is believed by many to be an extraterrestrial superconstruction, a hollowed out outworld base. That's really interesting. Our Occult History is a fantastic book. 1672. A comet is reported by Europeans in February. 1673. Around August, European explorers discovered a painting on an 80-foot high cliff. Pesa, local name for monster. That's the name the locals gave this painting, a Pesa. The monster painting had a large humanoid face with antlered horns and great wings that looked almost identical to the second millennium depictions of a cherub, the guardians in Mesopotamia, the caribous. You've seen them on a lot of Assyrian reliefs. It has been photographed in modern times and was located above the Mississippi River near Alton, Illinois, recorded by Father Marquette and since seen by thousands. The Piazza of Alton, Illinois has been studied by Asian scholars. It is concluded that its features mirror exactly the old Japanese dragon, even to its beard. The Lost Worlds of Ancient America, page 158. In 1675, this is a Japanese artwork found in North America. 1675. Many Indian tribes came together under the Indian leader Metacomet and made war against the English settlers. This was known at the colonies as King Philip's War. It would end in disaster for the Indians in the following year. The Greenwich Observatory is founded in London, and like France, England also made their maps Anglo-centric, with the prime meridian running north-south through England rather than France. Though this would not yet be made official until later and adopted by the entire world after this. Yeah, the French lost out on that one, guys. English won that one. 1676. This is the year 1600 of the Indian Saka calendar. This is the year 1200 since the fall of Rome in 476 AD. 1200 is 600 plus 600 years. 2 great years since the fall of Rome. The Indian Confederation forces were defeated by the colonists, ending King Philip's War. Rebel planners under Nathaniel Bacon burned the town of Jamestown in defiance of the British authority. This is exactly 100 years before the 13 colonies of England would declare their independence from England in 1776. In this year of 1676, the Delphic Oracle site is located by a French scholar, Jacques Spon, and English traveler, George Wheeler, using Pausanias's Guide to Greece, written about 15 centuries earlier. That's amazing. I need to see something real quick because this was 1676. I need to see some 1676. 340 Celeste. That's interesting. Hmm. Okay. It's 364 years before the Phoenix phenomenon. That's the Delphic Oracle. All right. 1677. A comet is recorded by Europeans in the month of April. Danish astronomer Olaf Romer studied the moons of Jupiter, especially Io in its eclipse times, developing a theory that light has speed, a concept unheard of at the time, as all researchers had accepted that light appeared instantaneously. Now we know that light travels at 186,000 miles per second. At least this is what the establishment teaches us today. It is interesting that the moons of far distant Jupiter were being studied at a time when Mars was also seriously studied and seen to have no moons, though 2 moons were suddenly orbiting Mars in the year 1877. So we move to the next year, 1678. In the year 1678, the first artistic depiction of a crop circle, or agroglyph, is made. The locals called the apparition that made the crop circle the mowing devil. The crop circle phenomenon will spike amazingly in the 1990s and the first decade of the 2000s. Yeah, this is the first depiction of a crop circle. I have an image of it. I have a picture. I've showed it on my channel. It's amazing. All right, 1680. Let's see here. In the year 1680, the Nemesis X object is at aphelion, the final aphelion before it returns to nearly collide to Earth in 2046, beginning its 366-year journey back toward the inner system. So this is 1680 is aphelion, meaning that the Nemesis X object is as far away as it's going to get before it begins coming back. A comet appeared in December and was studied by the student of Hevelius named George Dorfel, also by John Flamsteed and Edmund Halley. Later, Isaac Newton wrote about this comet. In the 20th century, people employing channeling believed themselves to be in contact with beings referring to themselves as Pleiadians. This is very recently, guys. Pleiadians, whatever. These beings conveyed the misinformation that ancient disasters, including the Great Flood, were caused by a massive comet with a 575.5-year solar orbit, and it was called the Destroyer. These Pleiadians claimed that the last time the destroyer was in the inner solar system was the year 1680. Guys, this is a deliberate lie that was received through channeling. It's a famous case who, whatever was channeled, told the exact opposite of the truth. Because the year 1680 wasn't the year of the destroyer or anything that had happened bad. The year 1680 was the only year in this last 1,000 years that the Nemesis X object was at perfect aphelion, meaning the furthest distance away from Earth as possible before it began its return journey. Just the opposite. Channeling. Just the opposite of the truth. Crazy, guys. So, 2,580 years before 1680, well, a supernova produced what we know of is called Cassiopeia A, like a nebula, which being 9,500 light years away was not even visible until sighted by Western astronomers in the year 1680. So that's if light has speed. It's very interesting. You might want to put that aside about the channeling deal, because that's interesting. It's a total lie. Whoever channeled that, whatever was channeled, told them the exact opposite of the truth. That's crazy. 1681. English colonial pastor Increase Mather, famous, wrote that Israel was alive and well in New England's people. 1682. A comet appeared and was studied by Edmund Halley. He realized that the unusual retrograde motion resembled the comet of 1607 and the Great Comet of 1456. He predicted that the same comet would return in 1758. Though he was correct in that it was the same comet, he was wrong about its return, which was in 1759. This was later named Halley's Comet. Now, I'm going to tell you guys that the scientific community gave this as a win to Edmund Halley, but Charles Fort shows research from other astronomers who claim that this is all supposition because Halley's Comet did not appear on many of those occurrences that are supposed to be every 76 years. It just didn't appear. A very bright comet inspired Massachusetts Puritan leader Increase Mather to preach about the wrath of God in this year, 1682. In 1683, another comet was reported, but in the month of July by Europeans. In 1684, a comet was reported in the month of May by Europeans. A major publication project of Mother Shipton's prophecies in this year by a man named Richard Head, which included the earliest biographical information about her. This is 178 years to 1862, when Shipton's prophecies were edited and added to by Charles Hindley, who later admitted it exactly 178 years after Hindley damaged the credibility of Shipton's prophecies in 2040. The return of the dragon, the phoenix, and the pole shift. So what we have here, it could have been written better, but what we have here in 2040 minus 178 is the year 1862, when Charles Hindley added to the Mother Shipton prophecy in that same year. It was 178 years after 1684, when Richard Head had produced the first biographical information about Mother Shipton. Now, Mother Shipton's prophecies are older, but now this guy makes up some stuff about who Mother Shipton was. Remember, somebody added Mother Shipton's birth to be 1488, but nobody knows for sure. But whoever added the date 1488 knew it was a Phoenix year and attached her to that. And her prophecy was about the return of Phoenix, a sky dragon. She got all the details right about the sixth seal of Revelation. So here it is, 178 years later, this other guy, Charles Henley, adds more details to the Mother Shipton prophecy, and this just happens to be 178 years before the event itself in May 2040. It's a perfect isometric projection. 178 years plus 178 years, all three events in history tied together. It's crazy. Can't make this shit up. 1685, King Louis XIV of France, in the Edict of Nantes, declared France to be a Catholic state, a bad move for the nation. For 200,000 Protestants fled the country, among them the nation's most skilled artisans and people of affluence. Most of these people made their way to North America. Like the earlier English colonies, North America was being peopled by Europeans escaping religious persecution. King James II ascends the English throne, and like a dictator, he recalls the New England and Middle Colony charters. He recalls the New England and Middle Colony charters violating constitutionalism and the sanctity of contracts. At the end of Charles II of England's reign, the English colonialists in North America numbered 200,000 people. They're becoming a mighty force now, guys. It's 1685. So, in 1686, a comet recorded by Europeans in the month of September. King James II of England created a centralized political state over the English colonies called the Dominion of New England. Dominion. Where do we hear that? By this time of 1686, guys, we have hidden hand. We have hidden faces now controlling Parliament in London. Listen, guys, the tiny hats had already moved in and were largely in control of England right now. So the colonial legislatures were dismissed, town meetings forbidden, and the militias were forbidden to operate without the approval of the king's appointee in Boston. This resulted in the colonial rebellions, which last until 1689. The Dominion of New England came to nothing. Yeah, they revolted quick. 1687, a major cross-calendrical parallel with 1687 BC, the Ogygian deluge. So we have a terrible quake at Callao, Peru, results in massive loss of life and property, just like 1687 BC, in the exact same part of the world. The Italians ruined the famous Greek structure, the Parthenon, over 21 centuries after the Greeks erected it. The Parthenon was adorned with reliefs of the War of the Titans and the Giants, the Trojan War, as well as of Nereus, the Aegean Noah. William Stukely was born in this year, an antiquarian who was interested in Stonehenge. He died in 1765. Intriguingly, as I said, this parallels the 1687 BC damaging of the Stonehenge complex during the earthquakes that transpired as Phoenix transited between Earth and the Sun, the rebuilding of the site being Stonehenge 3. Remember, the Phoenix passes over the Sun and darkens it. In our modern paradigm, that means an intruder planet or something else is blocking out the sun's light. Now, I believe the sky's all simulated, but this is exactly how it would be described by a modern scientist. So, Sir Isaac Newton's, the connection to Stonehenge here in 1687 AD is amazing because Stonehenge too is what, is Stonehenge excuse me, Stonehenge 3 is what came out of 1687 BC. A lot of it was toppled and it was re-erected. So Stonehenge 1 was vapor canopy, was pre-flood. Stonehenge 2 was caused by the Great Flood, 2239 BC. It was the site was repaired. Stonehenge 3, it was repaired again after 1687 BC. Sir Isaac Newton's discoveries are published in his Principia Mathematica, a text still regarded as one of the greatest scientific works ever composed. In it, he predicts that the Earth is non-spherical. This led to the discovery of the equatorial bulge. After a snowstorm in Ireland, a coal-black leafy mass found all over the ground, some masses as large as a tabletop. The mass smelled like rotten seaweed and was fibrous like paper. A tremendous fall over vast areas, also falling in great quantities in Norway and Pomerania. Also in January at the same time, a substance like charred paper fell in Norway and northern Europe, a decomposed vegetable composition. That's crazy. Some type of carbon-based stuff is falling from the sky everywhere. Isaac Newton's Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, his treatise on gravitation, was published, explaining how matter was measurable by mass and density. This parallels 1687 BC, when Phoenix proximity temporarily altered Earth's gravity, causing a worldwide cataclysm and ending the ancient science of anti-gravity levitation of megalithic blocks. The Dutch captain John Davis of the English ship the Bachelor's Delight, returning from raids in Panama, headed for Cape Horn, sighted land in the Pacific after a gigantic tsunami generated by the earthquake of Callao, Peru, took him further out to sea. Called Davis Land, this island was never seen again. So a tsunami from that badass earthquake in 1687 sent him off course. So he documented the location of this island. It was called Davis Island, and it was populated. Later on, I've talked about this in some of my other videos. Later on, other English navigators came. They combed that whole area. Davis Island's never been seen again. It and all its people vanished. The next year is 1688. This is the 48th century of the Mayan long count calendar. This is the 2000th year of the Assyrian-Greek Seleucid calendar. Emanuel Swedenborg was born at Stockholm, Sweden, a truly remarkable spiritual giant and prolific writer who would die in the year 1772. French navigator Dampier first voyaged to Australia, but like the Dutch, he did not stay long, only exploring the northwest coast, not realizing the land was actually a continent. Dampier wrote that the inhabitants of this country are the most miserable people in the world. Setting aside their human shape, they differ but little from brutes. And his second voyage to Australia would be in 11 more years in the year 1699. It's all very interesting, guys. As you notice in this presentation, we haven't hardly covered any data about the tiny hats. They seem to be invisible, but they're not. You see, I've already laid out the foundation of understanding of how the tiny hats were able to do the things they did, to manipulate whole entire countries, to a whole bunch of countries at a time, to instigate world wars, population shifts, genocides, how they're able to bankrupt nations, how they did all these things and almost never got the blame. The days of kicking all the Jews out of countries had they had become more and more wise. So what did they do? They created these fraternal benefit societies, and they created these elaborate systems like alchemy. Yeah, guys, the Hermetic literature. All these hooks to get people in that were intelligent, but they needed more. So they created these alchemical treatises, and they all these rituals and degrees and these secretive, secret societies. Guys, Freemasonry and all its offshoots was created by the Jews to infiltrate Europe. That's why they were created. And the shit worked geniusly. The Rosicrucian order is also an extension of the power of the tiny hats over Europe. It's another way that they infiltrated. The reason you're not hearing about overt tiny hat activity now in the 1600s is because they've wisened up and they're now using Europeans to do their dirty work under the code and degree system. It's this is what's going on. Every bit of this is, and they don't even hide it. All through the on my channel, I show all through the alchemical stuff. It's all Jewish stuff in there hidden. How the Jews are manipulating everything and how they're controlling all this stuff. This is what they do. They're genius at what they do. 1689. In the year 1689, American English colonials staged an armed insurrection in Boston against British Governor Sir Edmund Andros of New York on the 108th day of the year, April 18th. The English Civil War between the Whigs and Tories resulted in King James II being exiled while Parliament drafted the Declaration of Rights, a historical document declaring that the king and queen was not supreme, but shared authority with the English legislature and the courts. Who do you think designed that? Free speech and right to petition was made, and excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishments forbidden. This document also upheld the right of English Protestants to keep and to bear arms. That's interesting. It was these concepts that would later galvanize into the American Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, the U.S. Constitution, exactly 100 years later in 1789, and the Bill of Rights. Yeah, guys, none of this stuff happened fast. 100 years is a long time. 1690. The astronomer Cassini observed what appeared to be a comet colliding into Jupiter through his telescope. A comet would again collide into Jupiter in the year 1994 and be photographed. I believe that was Swift-Tuttle. Yeah, I believe that was Swift. That was the Swift-Tuttle comet. Pretty damn sure. 1691. The Aztecs unwillingly collected their sacred books and brought them to the Spanish bishop Nunez de la Vega, who promptly burned them all. The Roman Catholic authorities had already done this to the Inca and the Maya. That's so sad. I'm sick. The remains of a giant skeleton holding 210 pounds of corn is found in Macedonia. Wow. That's amazing. So we get to 1692. This is one cursed earth period before the Battle of Armageddon, the return of the chief cornerstone in 2106 AD, the 6,000th year Anno Mundi. So this is 6,000 years after the Genesis reset of Adam and Eve caused by the Phoenix. An earthquake struck Port Royal, Jamaica, which was a haven for thieves, pirates, smugglers, and slavers, a black market paradise where buyers could purchase stolen ships and even cargo. This was one of the busiest ports in the West Indies, and it was full of Jewish moneylenders. The quake sent a tidal wave into the port and city, and the earth vibrated, opening up under the feet of many people, swallowing them up to their necks before the ground began compressing, squeezing the victims to death. An unusually putrid rain fell upon Germany. At Salem, Massachusetts, 143 people were accused of witchcraft after widely circulating rumors, but 19 were actually hanged on what came to be Witches' Hill, and one man was pressed to death. Later, all of their convictions were reversed after they were dead, subsequent to new inquiries. Some blame the popular hysteria over witchcraft at that time on Cotton Mather, an imaginative writer, the son of the preacher Increase Mather. The Salem witch trials has since become a world famous event. That's like one cursed earth period before. That's crazy about that earthquake at Port Royal. That's crazy. People standing on the ground suddenly sank up to their necks before the ground solidified back and then started pressing them. Oh my God. What a terrible death. All right, so 1693, an earthquake in Catania, Italy killed 60,000 people. 1694, the Bank of England started a privately owned business allowed because it loaned much money to King William III of England, with the agreement that the bank could issue notes to the full extent of its capital. This bank created non-existent money from the interest it received on monies loaned that it had created using paper notes. This is how the Jews took London and turned it into what's known today as the city. London It's London, Washington, D.C., and the Vatican. They're all their own powers. All three of them are completely owned by the Tiny Hats. Yeah, I know you guys don't want to believe that the Tiny Hats ruled America during the Reagan administration, during Carter. No, I know you don't want to, but I'm telling you now. This is why we had Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger wasn't who you think he was. Henry Kissinger was running the nation. He was doing this for 2 decades. That's right, guys. No, the presidents were just puppets for the people to think they had a fair and equitable system. Not one time did voters ever put an American president in place. They're selected. They're always selected. And Henry Kissinger was running the show. He ruled the United States of America for a long time. Same bastard that just died this year. So, founded in North America. All right, they're artistic. Edmund Halley proposed to the Royal Society in the year of 1694 that Noah's flood had been caused by the collision of a comet into Earth. That was novel, but I do believe he stole that from another man named William Whiston. Yeah, I remember reading the book. Edmund Halley had heard it from William Whiston and then repackaged it, added more detail to it, and used his own prestige to propose it to the Royal Society. But the original theory was by William Whiston. All right, 30 years after their published presence, and let's see, hold on. 80 years after their published presence in 1614, the Rosicrucians founded a colony in North America where Pennsylvania is today. Their artistic building in Ephrata, Ephraim, still stands today. Franco Maria Rowe was born in Paris, known to the world as the philosopher Voltaire. 1694. In the year 1695, a greasy substance fell out of the sky upon Irish counties of Limerick and Tipperary. It stank horribly. What is all this stuff falling from the sky that stinks, that's decomposed? Remember I read to you guys about what happened in 1314 to 1347? Yeah, decomposed body parts of forest animals that had been just chopped up and then putrefied rained from the sky. Sometimes they were seen coming out of the bellies of giant cigars in the sky. These aren't UFOs, guys. These aren't vehicles. These are like machines. These are a part of the hidden sky apparatus. The same thing Phoenix is a part of. So 1696. This is the year 2448, year of Rome. Rome was founded in 753 BC. This is 2,448 years since the founding of Rome. I find that really interesting because 2448 is the year of the exodus of the old world. In our calendar, it's 1447 BC. In the old world's calendar, it is 2448 Annus Mundi. The Reverend William Whiston was a friend of Edmund Halley and the personal laboratory assistant to Sir Isaac Newton. Whiston began preaching that comets were responsible for several of the Old Testament astronomical occurrences, as well as the Great Flood, and that comets were a large part of the future apocalypse. He was a mathematician and wrote a book titled The Cause of the Flood Demonstrated, published in the year 1711. Whiston's book on comet causing the Great Flood, a new theory of the Earth from its original to the consummation of all things. That's in a book, Prophets of Doom, page 126. In the year 1698, a comet is reported by Europeans in the month of October. In the year 1699, an earthquake kills 400,000 people in China. China gets wiped out all the time, guys. It gets reset after reset after reset. It's crazy. By this date, the Aztec Codex, preserved in the Botarini collection, was known. Published by Gemelli Carreri, Rezoros, the Aztec migrations to Mexico from North America, indicating to some a date of 1338 BC. That's interesting. So the Aztecs, the ancestors of the Aztecs were said to come from North America into Mexico around 1338 BC. That's interesting. I'm thinking it's supposed to be 1338 AD. Yep. That's a mistake. It's supposed to be 1338 AD. And the reason I know this is because the Spanish conquistadors came in the 1500s, and the Aztecs were a brand new empire. They were only sitting on the throne for 40 years, and they claimed their descent from the Tolteca. It is the Toltecs that came from North America and settled Mexico, and then 200 and something years later, the Azteca ruled. So that's why I know that's wrong. It's not supposed to be 1338 BC. It's 1338 AD. That's okay. So in 1699, Dampierre returns to Australia. One of his sailors was speared by an Aboriginal, and Dampierre had the natives shot, to the terror of the Aborigines. He wrote that on the west coast in August there was such a vast multitude of whales that the sea seemed alive with their blowing and splashing. Now, 1699. I wanted to stop there because from 1700 on, we're gonna move. It is the year 2024. Our narrative ends 325 years before 2024, where we're at right now. We still have 325 years to cover. But to cover it, it's going to require more episodes than it took us to get here from the start of the hats off videos, because we're year by year by year by year from 1700, we got way more data. We have a lot more data to cover, and now the tiny hats are busy. They are busy with their plan for world dominion. They don't have it yet, but they're doing it. They're in the progress of doing it through the secret societies, through later Adam Weishaupt, through the Illuminati, through the Freemasons, through the Rosicrucians, through the Elks and Lions and Moose Lodges, the Foresters. They're busy. They have infiltrated all the secret societies. They even created many of them, and they're networking them together, and they're using those to basically find things to blackmail, put politicians in debt. Even kings and queens get put in debt. They use finances. This is how the tiny hats basically became members, a faction of the elite. Hope you enjoyed this presentation, guys. I'm sorry it was in 2 parts and it took so long. You guys know I'm busy as hell, but I love it. I would never have it any other way. And I'm going to get back to this most absolutely crappy book because I promised a book review, even though I'm embarrassed to do it. It's beneath my dignity. But I'm going to do it, guys. And I just want to let you know that we got RKX Newsroom next.